Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bold Take Scouting Podcast. We held a Q&A on all our platforms, including Instagram. You guys gave us some questions, draft-related, college football-related, and NFL-related, and so we're going to get to them here in this episode. Alex, you want to start us off with the first question?
Yeah, so the first question, probably the hottest topic in college football right now. And what are our thoughts on the Spencer Rattler situation? So, if anyone doesn't know, he was in the rivalry game versus Texas this Saturday, and he started off the game pretty poorly. He went 8 of 15 for 101 yards and an interception. Oklahoma was down pretty big, and he ended up getting benched. The backup went in, played a very good game, brought Oklahoma back. They were down by at least 3 scores, I think, and they ended up winning the game. So there's a huge, controversy, who's going to start, what's going to happen to Spencer Rattler, and a whole bunch of stuff. It really just opened up a can of worms. So, Costa, I'll let you start with this question.
Well, first off, I don't think we should just label him the backup. Let's give Caleb Williams his due credit and recognize the accomplishment that he had coming into that game down so much and rallying Oklahoma back to the win. And that goes hand in hand with what I'm about to say about Spencer Rattler. I don't think that he can get his job back after being pulled in such a decisive rivalry game, having started 8 for 15 for 111 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, getting replaced like that by Caleb Williams and seeing Williams shine. I think this is Williams' job now. I expect Lincoln Riley to present it as a battle to them throughout this week because you gotta keep Spencer Rattler ready, and you want him to think that he can win this job because you never know what can happen. Caleb Williams could go down with an injury. He's more of a running threat than Rattler, so there's more of an opportunity for him to get hurt on the ground. So I think that Lincoln Riley is going to have to make sure that Spencer Rattler is ready, but I think that this job is now Caleb Williams, given the outcome this past Saturday.
Yeah, and looking at some stuff that came out today, actually, it was been reported that Rattler is working with the second team right now. But Lincoln Riley, like you said, he's not going to name a starter yet. But I mean, if Spencer Rattler is working with the second team, then he's going to be the backup. I also read something that Lincoln Riley said he expects Spencer Rattler to remain with the team after 2021, and I can't see that happening at all. That kind of goes to where we want to talk about next. I think the best option for Rattler is to transfer. I mean, the new transfer rules have come into place this year. You don't need to sit out a year. He has a lot of football left to play, especially without having to sit out that year. He's only a redshirt sophomore, so he has 2 full seasons that he can play in another potentially high-powered offense, depending on where and if he does end up transferring. I think his draft stock is probably the lowest it can possibly be right now. He was coming into the season as a candidate for the number 1 overall pick, if we're being honest. And, no one has any idea where he would go right now if for some reason he decides to declare. I do not think he should do that at all, obviously. I think the best option would be transfer, build himself up at least another year, maybe 2 even, and then go from there.
Yeah, I actually really want to see how Rattler is going to respond to this because it's tough to gauge this from the outside, but we've seen for a few years Rattler being painted as kind of a diva, not the best teammate, not the most humble person. And so I really wonder what's going to happen now after presumably he loses his starting quarterback job. As you said, heading into the season, he was seen as a potential first overall pick, and now he's likely going to be holding a clipboard on Saturday. So what I hope to see is that not that he embraces this new role, because obviously he's going to be disappointed, but that he doesn't start thinking that he's entitled to anything more. He owns up to his responsibility in losing this job, and he goes and he just tries to be the best football player he can every single day, because now if he can't be playing on Saturdays, he really needs to be able to be upping his game every other day of the week as he's part of that program. And we'll see how the situation evolves. If he doesn't get his starting job back and Caleb Williams is really good all season and looks like the long-term starter the next couple of years in Oklahoma, I agree with you. I think Rattler would have to transfer. And you know what? I think he could be very successful elsewhere. But I'm going to say that this really depends on his mindset and his ability to be humble and overcome this defeat right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Mindset is really key right now for Spencer Rattler. I think we can move on to our second question. And this kind of curtails off of the game last night. Has Lamar Jackson developed into a better passer? And for me, the short answer is yes. I'm sure we'll get into that more. And I think you might say that as well, but I'll let you have this one first.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson was fantastic last night. And you saw that the Ravens finally ended their streak of 100-yard rushing games. And it was because Lamar Jackson just lit it up in the air. He had 400-something yards, 4 touchdowns. And wow, coming into this season, he didn't even have 300 passing yards in a single game. And he broke that pretty early on in the first couple weeks. And now he had the night that he had last night. And we saw him being a lot more poised in the pocket than last year, a lot more accurate, just a lot better at finding the open receiver, better anticipation, leading the receivers to yards after the catch, and having a good ability to scan the field. I really, really like what Lamar Jackson has shown so far this season. I think last night it was really prompted by game script in which they found themselves down really early. But if you've been watching him all season, it's obvious that he's made strides as a passer this offseason.
Yeah, when he was coming out of college a few years ago, I know both of us weren't his biggest fans, and it was because of his passing ability. It was not at all because of his rushing ability. We thought he was a special as a runner, but he lacked a lot in as a passer, and you did see that in his early years. But he has a good coach. He's obviously very talented, and he obviously put in a ton of hard work to become the passer that he is now. And, that really kind of shows me that if you are a quarterback that's willing to put in the work, that has the talent and just, hasn't put all the pieces there together yet passing wise, if you have something else that can allow you to win the games, which Lamar Jackson has in his rushing ability, it can, pad him time to develop as a passer.
Yeah, and I think that NFL coaches and general managers around the league are watching Lamar's development as a passer and are thinking about the new quarterback prospect on who's going to be on the market next spring, and that being Malik Willis. I think that if Lamar Jackson really plays like this as a passer all year, that will actually help Willis, and that's going to be something that'll definitely be exciting to talk about in the spring as we really get another shot at evaluating a quarterback of this type of profile with electric running ability and with some development left to do as a passer.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Malik Willis because he was kind of a guy that we compared loosely to Lamar Jackson when we talked about our quarterback rankings a few months ago, actually, or 2 months ago or something like that. And it was a similar situation where he's a very, very talented runner. And I thought he's a little more developed as a passer than Lamar was coming out of college. So I think, yeah, especially with how Lamar has developed as a passer this year, it'll be really interesting to see how the NFL values Malik Willis this spring.
Yeah, and our next question is, what are our thoughts on Alabama losing to Texas A&M? Well, first of all, I'd like to credit Texas A&M because that was an incredible performance on both sides of the ball by them, and they really had a tumultuous start of the season. They all summer they had that quarterback competition between Haynes King and Zach Calzada, and King went down in the first couple of weeks of the season. Calzada had to take his spot, and it resulted in a couple losses, but wow, I mean, we knew how much talent this team had. We talked about it throughout the offseason. It's really just a star-studded team on both sides of the ball. They really could have maybe 5-6 guys that go in the top 100 next year. So I think it was bound to happen that they put the pieces together, and there we go. They beat Alabama. And on the other side of it, let's not hit the panic button with Alabama. This is still Alabama, and I think save an injury to Bryce Young, they're going to be in the college football playoff. They likely need to win out to do so, and I do think they will. I think that they'll end up being SEC champions because if you look at the game and overall the season, they're still a very good team. Bryce Young has been playing really well. He's even in Heisman contention, and They outgained Texas A&M in yards. They put up 38 points, and yeah, the defense was shaky, but it's a Nick Saban led defense. They'll definitely bounce back. I would like to see some better play calling from Bill O'Brien, but I think that with Saban at the helm and just the talent they have on both sides, that they're going to be in the playoff. Let's not forget that this is a team that easily beat Ole Miss, and we're seeing that Ole Miss is one of the best teams in the country. So I really do think Alabama is going to be okay after this, but credit to Texas A&M on a great win.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be okay. I don't expect them to lose another game, except maybe the SEC championship game. I think Georgia's a very, very talented team, and I think their defense is elite, which is just crazy because they lost some of their top pieces to the draft in 2021. But with how good Georgia's defense is, their offense has looked good. But I just, I think Alabama has a much better offense than Georgia does, and I think Nick Saban can figure it out on defense. He'll know how to stop that Georgia offense. So I agree. I'd expect to see Alabama in the college football playoffs. But it does show that if you have a perfect game plan, if you know what you're doing against Alabama, you can beat them, and they're definitely not a lock to win the national championship.
Oh yeah, I think Georgia could definitely win the national championship. I would even say they're a better team, and they've shown that so far. But I just don't see Alabama missing out on the playoffs. I think they're definitely still a good enough team, and in the SEC championship game, my hot take is that they'll take down Georgia, but we'll see what happens. And even if that happens, I could see the reverse happening in the college football playoff. But all that is a long ways away, and we'll move on to our next question, which is also related to Alabama, and it is that will their star left tackle Evan Neal be the number one draft pick? So, what are your thoughts on this question?
I mean, obviously, when it comes down to any draft pick question about somebody going number one overall, it comes down to who has the number one overall pick. I think if the team with the number one overall pick has a quarterback, I'm thinking, the Jets, the Jaguars, Evan Neal probably should be the number one overall pick. Definitely the Jaguars could use some help on the offensive line. And, the Jets have some young pieces in Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker. But I think Evan Neal is almost too good to pass up. Imagine, having those three together for the next, what would it be, minimum 3 years, I think would be very beneficial for the Jets as well. And then another team that is probably better than their record says they are, but, they're still going without a win, the Detroit Lions. I think if they do end up with the number one overall pick, I'm not sure I can see them going Evan Neal. I think, quarterback might be something they would look towards, and they do have both Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell at tackles. So I think it really kind of depends on how the rest of the draft board shakes out come April.
Yeah, one thing that can work against Evan Neal's against Evan Neal is, and it's something that I find pretty interesting. I would like to see how the NFL would think about this. Is that a lot of these teams that are in contention for the first overall pick, they have really an established left tackle, because you wouldn't be seeing Evan Neal playing on the left side for the Jets. They have Mekhi Becton. For the Texans, they have Laramie Tunsil. For the Lions, they have Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. So would a team really spend a first overall pick on a player that they're going to play at right tackle? I know that we're seeing that it's more and more important to just have two really good bookend tackles, and that left tackle and right tackle are pretty interchangeable in terms of value. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about the first overall pick, I think that we kind of still are in that mindset of it's got to be a quarterback, a left tackle, or defensive end. And I would be shocked if it's anything else. So I'd say that that could work against him. And at the end of the day, I think a quarterback will emerge out of the mix right now. There's been some promising performances like Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Malik Willis. I think one of them is going to have a really strong second half of the season and end up being the first overall pick, either to the team that holds the first overall pick or in a trade. So right now I would say that Evan Neal probably won't be the first overall pick, but I already love him as a prospect. He's just, I think his movement skills at that incredible size and his technique are really impressive. I see him more being in the 4 to 6 range than going first overall right now.
Yeah, that's understandable. It is worth noting that, was it 2013 when the Eagles took Lane Johnson? I think it was 7th overall. And I think the right tackle position has just become more valuable.
4th overall.
Oh, 4th overall. Yeah. So I think the right tackle position has become more valuable over the past, what would it be, 8, 9 years now. So I think it might not be a huge jump to see a right tackle or someone that would play right tackle go first overall because he is that good.
I think that we're not quite there yet in terms of going first overall. That first overall is just a really lofty status and a really big investment. I agree with you that it wouldn't be a bad idea because it's almost of equal importance. I just don't think that we'd be seeing that.
Yeah, I think we can move on to the final question of the night. And the question is Bijan Robinson a future top draft pick? And Costa, I'll let you take that one first.
I really like Bijan Robinson already. He's really the total package to me. He's got great burst, great shiftiness. He's so hard to tackle because he has great contact balance, and he's just such a decisive one-cut downhill runner, really explosive too. And he can split out wide as a receiver. So I think he's really the total package, and that makes him a Heisman contender for a reason. That being said, I don't know what a top draft pick entails in terms of this question. He'll definitely be a first rounder, in my opinion, barring some type of major injury until he's eligible to declare, which won't be in 2022. He'll only be first eligible in 2023. But I definitely see him going in the first round. I just don't think he'll potentially go in the top 5 or top 10 because I just don't think we're going to be seeing that anymore. With in recent years, with Leonard Fournette going 4th overall and just not living up to that status, Saquon Barkley going 2nd overall and just not being able to stay healthy, I think teams really are going to be moving away from picking running backs that high. We hear some people saying don't pick a running back in the first round. I'm not at all on that train. I absolutely love Najee Harris and also Travis Etienne. I think they were both worthy of first-round picks, and Bijan Robinson definitely will be too. I just don't think that he'll end up going in the top 5 or 10 if that's what this question was leading to.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a first round talent. He's definitely a special running back. I think something that could potentially work against him is he may have quite a bit of tread on his tires.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's the lead back this year. He will be the lead back next year. Two heavy workload years sometimes does tend to work against running backs because scouts and NFL GMs like to see running backs that one really good year their junior year and then some playing time sophomore and freshman year, just, so they know they're still fresh. I don't think that will take Robinson out of the first round. He's just too good to be left out. But I don't think I can see him going top 10 just because of the value of a running back position in the draft. Not that the running back isn't valued at the NFL level. You just are able to find very good running backs later in the draft. So if I was, a team in the top 5 that had multiple needs, it would make sense to take, an offensive lineman, a quarterback, an edge rusher in the top 5, and then say, I can get a running back that's a little worse, but the talent gap is a lot closer between a first round running back and a second, third round running back than a first round or a top 5 edge rusher and a second, third round edge rusher.
Yeah, so in short, I think the bust rate at the position and the lack of durability, and especially in the case of a running back that'll have been a workhorse for multiple years before coming out, will lead Bijan Robinson, who is an incredible talent, and we're really lucky to be able to watch him every Saturday. I think it will probably lead him to being maybe in the back half of the first round or at the highest early teens. I just don't think we'll be seeing him go top 10.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And that wraps up our question and answer podcast for this week. If you guys ever have any questions for us that you want us to answer on a podcast, you can always DM us on Instagram, add us on Twitter, anything like that. Thanks, everyone, for watching, submitting questions. We'll be back again next week with another episode.